1. I met up with a guy for coffee after chatting online. Within 5 minutes, he started acting oddly. When I asked why, he said he was disappointed because my breasts looked larger in my picture. Then he went on about how much he valued large breasts. After a while, I cut him off and asked about the size of his penis. I didn't care about the answer, grabbed my things, said, "Too small for me," and left. 2. Within the first 15 minutes, he told me he wanted me to eventually wear a full burqa. I already wear a headscarf, and complained that I was wearing too much makeup. I ended the date right there. He tried to explain that his family was connected to the KKK, but not for racist reasons. This was after he refused all non-American food choices, which I initially gave him the benefit of the doubt for, since he was from a small town in Texas, and it seemed new to him. I left money for my meal, which hadn't arrived yet, and walked out. I don't know why he even asked for a date, since I'm clearly Hispanic. 5. I showed up, and her best friend, who I wasn't told would be there, was with us. Then her brother arrived, followed by her dad, her mom, and 3 cousins aged 3 to 5. At that point, I excused myself to the bathroom. Thankfully, this was one of those places where the staff will discreetly help you leave if you're having a bad date. Apparently, I was the first guy they helped out. 7. She talked loudly the entire time during the movie, but shushed anyone who made the slightest sound. 8. He said, "Yeah, you're an engineer now, but once you get pregnant, you'll stop working, right?" So many assumptions in one sentence, and we hadn't even gotten our food yet. 9. She wanted to go wedding dress shopping on our first date. 11. He snapped his fingers at the waiter. It was so rude, I was mortified and left immediately, even before we ordered drinks. 12. We saw a couple who were black and white, and he expressed disgust. I said they were cute, but he told me he didn't believe in races mixing. 13. He said, "I have 4 kids from 3 different women. I've cheated on all of them, but something tells me it will be different with you. Do you like kids?" I excused myself to the bathroom and ran for the hills. 14. He took me to a World War II museum and said, "You know, the Nazis weren't all that bad." That was my cue to leave. He showed up 45 minutes late with no call or message to let me know, just as I was finishing my drink and walking out. He was on the phone with a friend, and when I went to greet him, he put his hand up in my face and shushed me. I overheard his friend ask, "So, did you sue her yet?" I loudly replied, "No," and he won't either, as I walked out. 16. I realized he had drugged my drink. His excuse was that he had drugged his own drink and then just offered me some to try, so it was my fault. Luckily, I felt what was happening and managed to leave quickly, riding it out at home alone. In hindsight, it could have been much worse. 17. He was anti-vax. Like Bill Gates is putting microchips in the vaccine level of crazy. I didn't even finish my drink. After that, I started asking people if they were vaccinated before agreeing to meet up. 18. She was up front. "I guess I should tell you that I'll expect you to stop talking to any other girls in your life." She then clarified that she meant everyone, and yes, she was serious. She gets jealous easily. 20 years ago, I agreed to meet a woman at a coffee shop. She showed up with 4 loud kids who climbed all over the chairs and nearly destroyed the place. I paid for our coffees and left. 22. He scolded me for giving money to a homeless person outside the bar, and then went off on a rant about the scum on the streets. I didn't even finish my first drink before I said I didn't think it was going to work out and left. 24. On a first date at a coffee shop, the guy picked up my foot, I was wearing sandals, and rubbed it for a second before putting all my toes in his mouth. At the table. In the coffee shop. 25. After walking around a stadium so he could take pictures of lampposts, we entered just as the match had started. I told him I didn't drink, but he bought me a beer. I told him I was a vegetarian, but he insisted on ordering 2 hot dogs over my head. Once seated, I wasn't eating, and he yelled at me to eat the hot dog. I left immediately, making up an excuse about receiving a text. 26. As we walked toward the cafe, he said, "Before we begin, you should know my family's very wealthy, and you'll be well taken care of. I want to get married right after graduation, so you won't need to worry about going to college or working because you'll be at home." I had never seen so many red flags. I left before even entering the cafe. 27. It was my first and only blind date set up by a mutual friend. She arrived and parked in a disabled spot, then told me she used her grandmother's disabled pass. That didn't sit well with me, but I went along with it. We went bowling and to dinner, but she was rude to the staff at both places, which made me uncomfortable. I ended the date early, paid, and never saw her again.